Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nikki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got a meaty one today. Let's get into it. The story I want to start with has been simmering in the menopause research world for a while, but the scientists published a piece recently that lays it out clearly enough that I think it's worth walking through properly, because this is not a small thing. This is the study, or really the set of studies, that changed how an entire generation of women experienced menopause. And not in a good way. We're talking about the Women's Health Initiative, launched in the early 1990s, published its landmark HRT findings in 2002. And the headline coming out of that research was stark. Hormone therapy increases breast cancer risk. Doctors pulled prescriptions almost overnight. Women already on HRT were told to stop. New prescriptions cratered. The medical establishment did a sharp U-turn based on this data, and for millions of women who were symptomatic, hot flashes, sleep destruction, brain fog, the whole experience. The message was essentially, you're on your own. The problem is, the WHI had serious methodological issues that, even at the time, some researchers were flagging. The average age of participants in the study was 63. The median time since menopause was over a decade. So the study was largely looking at what happens when you introduce hormone therapy to women who were well past the window, when most people would actually start it, not perimenopausal women in their late 40s or early 50s, trying to manage symptoms at the time they're happening. This matters enormously because the timing hypothesis, the idea that when you start HRT relative to menopause onset has a significant effect on its risk-benefit profile, has accumulated a lot of support since 2002. Women who initiate hormone therapy close to menopause versus a decade later appear to have meaningfully different outcomes. But the WHI's design couldn't really speak to that question because most of its participants weren't in that group. There were other issues. The combined estrogen-progestogen arm used a specific synthetic progestogen, medroxyprogesterone acetate, that is not the same as the bioidentical progesterone most commonly used today in many countries. Some of the elevated breast cancer risk signals in the WHI appear to have been driven by that specific combination, not by hormone therapy as a broad category. And the estrogen-only arm of the WHI for women who'd had hysterectomies actually showed a reduced breast cancer risk. That part got significantly less press. So where does the evidence actually land now? The British Menopause Society, the International Menopause Society, and NAMS have all moved toward a more nuanced position. The breast cancer risk associated with combined HRT is real but small, roughly in the range of the risk associated with drinking 1 to 2 glasses of wine per night, or with being overweight. And for women under 60, or within 10 years of menopause onset, the risk-benefit calculation for most women looks quite different than the post-WHI panic suggested. This is the kind of evidence your doctor would look at on a tool like open evidence, where the question isn't, is there any risk, but what is the actual magnitude, compared to what and in whom? None of this means every woman should be on HRT. It means the blanket fear that was installed in 2002 and that still operates in a lot of exam rooms was built on a shaky foundation. The women who were taken off hormone therapy abruptly in 2002, the women who spent years suffering through symptoms because their doctors were scared to prescribe. That is a real cost. It deserves to be named. I want to be clear. I'm not saying the WHI was fraudulent or that the researchers were negligent. Science is iterative. Studies get conducted with the methods available at the time, and then better questions get asked. What I am saying is that the media translation of that research, HRT causes breast cancer, full stop, was never what the data actually showed, and the correction has been far slower than the original alarm. That asymmetry has consequences. There's a new study out of Korea in the NAMS journal that I want to flag because it touches something that doesn't get discussed enough: the relationship between type 2 diabetes and how bad menopause symptoms get. The study looked at midlife Korean women and found that type 2 diabetes was significantly associated with both the number and the severity of menopause symptoms. And the postmenopausal women with T2DM reported a heavier symptom burden overall than women without it. This is observational data, Korean women, one population, so you can't just export the findings universally. And the study design means you can't say T2DM causes worse menopause symptoms, just that they tend to show up together and compound each other, but the direction makes biological sense. Insulin resistance affects how the body regulates temperature, sleep, and mood. Disrupted blood sugar contributes to inflammation. Both menopause and diabetes affect the same metabolic pathways. The idea that someone with poorly managed blood sugar is also going to have a harder hormonal transition is not a leap. It's actually fairly coherent mechanistically. What I find useful about this for listeners is that it reframes the question slightly. If you're in perimenopause or postmenopause and your symptoms are severe, if the hot flashes are relentless, if the sleep is a disaster, if the mood stuff feels unmanageable, metabolic health is worth examining, not as a replacement for the conversation about hormone therapy, but as part of the full picture. Blood sugar regulation, insulin sensitivity, weight distribution, these aren't separate from the hormonal story. They're tangled up with it. The researchers call for tailored interventions for women with T2DM going through menopause, which is a reasonable ask. Whether any healthcare system is actually set up to deliver, that is a different question. The third item today is a randomized controlled trial published in Menopause, the NAMS journal, looking at whether a specific probiotic formula could help manage menopause symptoms and improve quality of life. RCTs on probiotics are not common in this space, so that alone is worth noting. The trial used the Cervantes scale, which is a validated tool for measuring menopause-related quality of life across multiple domains. And the results showed improvements in menopause-associated symptoms and quality of life in the probiotic group. Here's where I want to read this carefully though. The global Cervantes score, the overall quality of life measure, was similar between groups. The improvements the researchers are pointing to were in specific symptom domains, not the composite score. That's a meaningful distinction. When the headline metric doesn't separate and the positive findings are in subgroup measures, you hold the conclusion a little more loosely. The researchers themselves say future studies are needed to confirm the effect and understand the mechanisms. That's honest. This is a promising signal, not a settled answer situation. The gut-hormone connection is genuinely interesting science. The estrobolome, the collection of gut bacteria involved in estrogen metabolism, is a real thing, not supplement marketing. How the gut microbiome affects circulating estrogen levels and whether manipulating it has meaningful downstream effects on menopause symptoms is an open and legitimate research question. This trial adds a data point. It doesn't close the question. What it does not do is justify the wall of $60 probiotic bottles at the menopause supplement counter, each one claiming to support hormonal balance. The gap between an RCT found improvements in some symptom domains with a specific clinically studied formula and take this probiotic for menopause is enormous. The specific strains matter. The dosage matters. The formulation studied in this trial is not interchangeable with whatever's being sold to you with a hot flash graphic on the label. So, interesting data, real scientific basis for the question being asked, and genuinely too early to translate into a product recommendation. That's where this sits.
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.